and make more money. So if you're buying a piece of equipment that they cannot resell quickly, they're not as quick to approve you, and they think that if we ever have to take this piece of equipment back, how are we going to get rid of it? So everything starts to get more expensive. So you're saving money on the equipment because it's a cheaper piece of equipment, but on the financing, it becomes a wash. So
a lot of calculations required, right?
Yeah, no question. And then something else is when you get approved, you may get approved for more than what you actually need, right? And then next thing you know, the salesman's like, well, you got approved for $30,000 and you only needed 20. And they're gonna try to find a way to sell you $10,000 more worth of stuff that you don't necessarily need. So don't get caught up in that trap either. It's like, you know, if you know, hey, maybe you do need a little bit of consumables on top of that or something like that, but don't just go max out whatever you're approved for just because the bank came back and said, you know, you got good credit and here is another $10,000 or something. They will try to sell you with your embroidery machine, I don't know, a pre-treat machine, and you no need for it at all, you know, so just keep that in mind as well.
Now you touched on it a little, but I think in either case of beginner or advanced equipment purchase, you also have to worry that you don't use all your money up because you're going to need more, right? I mean, I've seen people with screen printing equipment not ready for all the other things they're going to have to buy, right?
yeah, you want to think it through, and that's true. You most likely will get approved for more than you need. A slimier salesman will say, well, let me get all that money into our pockets. There's no need for that. You get what you need to get your business going. If you've got expanded credit, it's nice to know, well, I've got it. If I need
You gotta buy more thread, you gotta buy more
but
hoops,
thread
whatever.
is fairly inconsequential. Usually ink is like an expensive commodity. In embroidery, to do a left chest design, you're talking 10 cents. You know, that's your consumable, your thread, your bobbin, your backing.
I guess screen printing, well, you gotta buy screens.
Screen printing is another animal.
You have to expand your screen room, and
right.
people don't think that through.
Right, and that is true. You want to think the process
Even
through.
with a small, if you get a hand press, you gotta get,
you
got a bigger
get
hand
more
press,
stuff.
you gotta get more screens, right? More ink. I mean, ink does that up, right?
Yeah, definitely. The consumables are a thing in screen printing that you can't get away from. It's going to be it's almost like rent, pretty much. Whether it's emulsion, you're going to get a gallon. The more screens you do, you know, like a gallon a week sometimes, or you might be starting to buy a lot more ink. White ink is going to go very, very fast. You know, you may start with 1 gallon. Next thing you know, you're buying 5s, and you talked about the other day, 5 quickly can turn into 25.
Yeah.
And being able to have enough for you to do the job. So it's definitely, the consumables are something that a lot of people don't necessarily consider. You know, I think embroidery is more so time. Is what I find. I outsource my embroidery, but you think about like how many stitches, how long is the run time, how many heads you got, you know, all of those things.
That is true. We run 28 heads. You know, typically a startup is a 1 head. So we both get a 100-piece order. You got to run your machine 100 times. I got to run my machines 4 times. But the consumable, you know, the amount of thread, you know, we get you on the machine purchase. That's the expense. The other key thing in starting a business is keep your overhead to a minimum. If you can run the equipment yourself without having to hire employees, and you should know how to run your own equipment, keep the overhead down. And as the business grows and as you cannot handle it, then you start looking to hire people, train them, bring them in.
Pay rent.
Yeah, pay rent. Yeah, I mean, and that's another thing. You got to figure out what your shop cost is, your hourly shop cost. So you want to take all your expenses. This includes rent, utilities, your pay, your profit, your consumables.
We get
everything.
paid for this?
Well, again, you know,
On a good day.
right? But you want to take that number and you want to boil it down to how much do I have to make to be in this place every month, and then divide it by 4 to a weekly number, divide it down to how many days you want to work. I need to make this amount of money in this day in order to make my monthly, my nut, so to speak, and then boil it down to the hour. When you say, well, now I know that I need $40 an hour just to do business, and that's my profit, my overhead, everything. And then somebody comes in with a job, and here it is. Here's 10 pieces. What do I have to make? This job's gonna take me an hour and I got 10 pieces. I gotta at least make $4 a piece just to make what I need to make. Do not give it away. A common thing in embroidery is, and you'll see it everywhere, You got to charge $1 per 1,000 stitches. But that's right for 1% of the people out there. You have to figure out what your monthly, daily, hourly cost is, and you charge accordingly. And somebody comes in and they go, oh, you know, Bob down the block, he's going to do it for 17 cents less. Well, you know, if your machines aren't busy, take the job and do the job, because if the machines are not making, what they say, if the machines don't make noise, you're not going to buy any toys. So you have to keep your equipment running. It's not gonna, it doesn't make you money sitting there and looking pretty. It has to run. So even if you're below your shop cost or your hourly wage, you want to keep that machine running. And as you grow, that bottom feeder that that came to you that was gonna get you on a lower price, you either raise his price or get rid of him and fill your business with better quality customers, and it'll make your life a lot better.
I knew you were a good salesman, but it's the whole no noise, no toys, huh? I like that.
Yeah, you may use that.
That's a keeper.
That's out there. That's for everybody.
You have videos about like putting the money, making sure you figure out your costs, right?
We talked about that yesterday, like what I call organizing hustle. I forgot what you named it, but I think what he's saying is important. And if you're not in a position where you have a shop and you're working out of your house, you got to plan for where you want to be. So what he's saying about like figuring out your hourly costs, when I think back to me, 2012, trying to figure out how much to charge based on all of these formulas, and I looked at it and I got overwhelmed because, man, I don't have rent, I'm just out of my house and different things like that. But we always establish prices. We're afraid to establish prices because we don't know why we charge what we charge. But if you plan to get into a retail space, you need to plan for that now. Just because you're out of your spare bedroom or your garage doesn't mean that you should be charging less. Because once it's hard to raise your prices. People are, I asked this the other day. She wanted to raise her price $3 more. She's had the same price for like 3 or 5 years or something like that. And we're afraid. But if you plan accordingly, you know how much it costs you on an hourly rate to run your shop. You have goals, and every day you're not going to hit your goal. Something goes wrong, your machine goes down, you're not going to hit it. But there will be more days where you exceed that if you're running optimally, where it'll balance itself out. But so don't get trapped in like, man, I didn't hit it this week, but next week you might do 2 times what it was supposed to be the last week, or different things like that. And what he said about paying yourself is beyond true. I find that a lot of small businesses rather, they rob themselves because they just take money out of their business. Just take money. It's your money, don't get us wrong, but figure out what you need to live off of. What is your comfortable number so that now you can include that. And the easiest way to get an employee is to actually pay yourself. So now it's like I pay myself a fair wage for this, $15 an hour, or whatever it may be in your area. Now when you go and pay somebody else that $15 an hour, it doesn't seem like an expense. And now you can say, I'm gonna pay you $15 an hour, and now I just bought back 40 hours of time that I can go out and, you take 40 hours, $15 an hour, $600. It's like, man, I can find 2 jobs and that employee's paid for the week, and I still got 5 or 4 days left in the week to actually go out and make more profit. So, where's your time best used and what it is that you're actually offering people. And sometimes we definitely have to look at and break down all of our goals, where we want to be, how much is our operating cost for where we want to be in the future as well, so that we can price and position ourselves accordingly.
I'm going to touch on one other thing that you guys mentioned, just for emphasis. Just because someone will lend you the money does not mean you should take it.
Well,
right? If you're getting at what can you afford is really more important than what you can get. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
How about do you guys have any burning things to say, or should we go to questions?
Go to questions.
All right. Who's got a question about financing? All right, so the question is, talking about buying equipment, but what if the consumables are as much as the equipment costs?
So you can buy what you need for the job, right? Like I tell people, learn what you need to do for this job, because it's way too much to learn. You can get overwhelmed. I'm trying to lost the word. You get overwhelmed with just coming to the show for the first time and seeing the equipment. I remember when I was there. So you talk about consumables. If you need white ink for this job, just buy white ink for this job. If you need red ink this next week, in your first couple of jobs as you get going, you're gonna have a ton left over. We're talking about inks. thread, my friend who has an embroidery shop, he's like, man, they gave me thread, I'm still making money. I done paid for the machine off the thread that they supplied me with, when you're starting out. But when it comes to consumer, you buy what you need at the moment. And one job will probably pay, like a gallon of ink is like $50-something. You'll profit that. You'll have 100 jobs left in that gallon of ink or whatever the case is. So buy what you need, and then you'll have maybe you only start out with 5 or 7 colors. I got these colors, and if somebody comes in, you can charge a little more if they have something that's a special color we don't normally offer.
Just
don't, it's going to cost you a little bit more.
Just don't go overboard.
Yeah,
it's real easy to see, that 25 gallons of white ink is way cheaper per gallon. But sitting on it, it's the money out of your pocket. And you got to realize that's a cost, like an equipment cost almost.
And you got to track it. So it's hard when they say like 10 cents of embroidery or ink. When it comes to like ink, it's hard to really track how much ink is going onto a shirt. They weigh the shirt and they measure it very soft. Like, it's really, really hard to do that. But you want to look at, you should have it written down. This month I spent, this much on consumers. Next month I spent that much, because you'll start to figure out it is literally a payment, that you have to make every month, because it's just in your business. You maybe spending 4 or 5, you get a bigger shop, thousands of dollars a month in order to keep the shop running on consumables.
It's a great industry. Everybody can make a living here. Do not operate out of desperation. You do not want to, I've got $50,000 I got to pay back. I'm going to take this customer. This customer wants to pay you nothing for your services because they don't value what you do. You do not need that customer. Kick them to the side, because it's just not worth your time.
Kick them hard.
And those customers typically are the worst. They will give you the hardest time. They will nitpick over the smallest items. You're all going to see it if you haven't seen it already. You want to build your business based on your reputation, the quality work you do, and the type of customers you have. And I'm not going to say you're going to be happy. I mean, it is work. It's still work. Nothing happens for free. But there'll be a lot less stress, and that's we all strive for that to some extent.
It's funny you say that. I've been doing this, as you so nicely pointed out, since dinosaurs ruled the earth. But I've never heard of anybody that got rid of a customer that you credited, if they did it on purpose.
Yeah, sure.
If they did it on purpose.
Yes, we're actually in the process of culling a lot of our customers over the years, and I'm going to tell you, when you try to throw them out, they will hang on like they got an umbilical cord. They will not go, because they know nobody else will do that work for that cheap, and nobody will do that quality. They've got you. They want to hold on to you. So it's difficult, but you got to make them understand that I got to make a living. I'm in this not to serve you as much as I got to eat, and I got to make my expenses. So if I'm not doing that, I should be doing something else. That's important.
We do a lot of work for brokers, and one of them once was like, I got to do what I got to do to put food on my table. And then when he walked away, I told my friend, I'm talking about eating. He's talking about driving to the grocery store in a Lexus. So some people cry poor, and they got a different idea of poor, I'll tell you.
Right. Did that guy just pull away in a Maserati, and I'm giving it this for nothing?
They used to have a guy in a fancy sports car would come up, drive over, and tell me why he couldn't pay me yet. Anyway, and more questions about financing.
I would say pick a quality leasing company if you're going to lease.
All right, so the question is, how much of a waste factory
What
do you
type
build?
of work are you doing? Yeah. All right, so I learned this very, very early on. It's like, some people who supply garments. So this is where I caught the lesson. They want to bring their own garments in. So they just want to pay what they actually, whatever, screen print, just that fee. But it only takes one small mishaps and the shirt is ruined. So, you have to charge a handling fee, which is $1 at the time, even if they're bringing you their own garment. So you have to add that in, whether it's 50 cents or $1, you figure it out. But you want to track what your error rate is, obviously. If I can do 100 shirts and I got like 3 shirts that might be messed up, you want to build that in. Sometimes you want to order extra of every size. I've seen people do it a lot of ways, and taking your time, especially when you got employees, is more likely to happen. I printed black on the top half of these sweatshirts, I printed white on the bottom half. like, man, what am I gonna do? These sweatsuits are pretty much the whole profit for the job. So, you know, how you set things up and different things like that is gonna be really, really important to, you know, what you're talking about. But obviously, we can't avoid the mistakes in the business. It just happens. So adding in a little rate, and then that's where the markup comes in as well. It's like, you know, how much are you marking up your garments? And you kind of like figure out where you need to be as far as like what that number should be based on your error rate as well.
We figure on screen printing 1.5% per side printed is going to be reject. So if it's a contract person, we make them supply that many more, and we don't pay for anything that's under that. They have to pay that. And then we charge $1 extra for embroidery of what we call premium items, because if you ruin them, it's just ungodly expensive. You ruin a Nike duffel bag or a Carhartt jacket, and it's so expensive. So we add to that as well.
Do not print or embroider on something that cannot be replaced. Do not print on somebody's great-grandmother's wedding dress that for the $7 you were going to make, and the machine did something that it shouldn't have done, and now you've got a problem. Do not print on $400 leather jackets. Give them to your worst competitor. You know, I don't do leather, but go to Rick down the block. He loves that kind of stuff. That's what you want to do. Don't take those. Strive to be as good as you can possibly be with the medium that you're working. So you will have mistakes. It's part of the process. You want to keep that to a minimum. I know people do build in a certain percentage into it. I typically don't. And there are two types of business that come in. Either they're supplying their own garments, where you have to let them know that there could be a problem, there's going to be waste. I will not be responsible for any problems because I did not supply these garments. And then there's the customers where you are, as a wholesaler, supplying the garments to them, in which you're charging them more, so that if you do have some waste or error, that you could easily order extra pieces and not take a hit on that.
And if it's expensive, you better get approval in spades. Like, you know, a picture of the embroidery comes back that they approved. I mean, if it's a lot of shirts or expensive, we get them to sign a shirt and send it back. That's the sample that they approved. You gotta protect yourself, because the quickest way to go out of business is to ruin a whole bunch of stuff. And it's even worse when you didn't ruin it and they're just a jerk. So you gotta cover yourself.
I would say something else to add to that is when you're trying to do something new for the first time, sometimes like it's like basically saying is find your niche, understand what you're offering, and not go out exploring. Sometimes I know early on we get caught up in just saying yes to everything, and sometimes it's like by the time you get done a job, regardless of what you charge, if you messed up or not, by the time you put all the hours in to try to figure it out, to go find the right, you know, whatever it is that you had to buy off the internet to get it done, you really lost money. And I think it's great to experiment early on, but once you find your pocket of, you know, the stuff that you want to do, that you enjoy doing, that is easy, it's quick for you to make money doing, to stay inside that pocket and, you know, outsource and make sure you build relationships with people, multiple relationships. You gotta have 3 embroiderers. You gotta, because people get busy the same way when you get busy. Artwork, graphic designers are flaky, and we all know that side of the industry is very, very hard to keep consistent. So have enough people around you, so you know you can take a smaller fee and still keep your customers and keep them happy.
So just because you can